Hello. All right, kia ora and welcome everyone. I'm so thrilled to have you here tonight for our Pecha Kucha exhibition. For anyone new to the format, it's a Japanese style of presentation meaning chit-chat. 20 slides, 20 seconds each, but I think we're a bit relaxed. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I have to say we honestly weren't expecting such a huge response and this much eagerness, so it really shows that there's a need for spaces like this where we can come together and share ideas and to connect. So that's why Asia Kiwi Architects exists, to create a platform for voices that don't always get heard and to raise awareness of issues in the Asia-Pacific region through an architectural lens. We also want to ground this evening by acknowledging Te Tiriti o Waitangi as the founding document of Aotearoa and Mana Whenua as the original architects and kaitiaki of this land. As tau iwi, solidarity with Māori is essential as we navigate our shared colonial histories. We must honour the land we build upon, recognising its significance to tangata whenua. I also want to acknowledge the work of Asians supporting Tino Rangatiratanga for their educational efforts in this space. So many of the projects tonight connect to those values, engaging with themes of Asia Aotearoa, the architecture of crisis, and the realities of displacement, identity, care, and culture. We're also really lucky to have an amazing panel tonight. Iting, Ben, Bhaveeka, Iman, and Yusef. Unfortunately, Michael McCabe and Sameh Shamout weren't able to join us, but they are with us in spirit. A big thank you goes to the people who could make this event possible. Vinayak Garg for helping curate, design the brochures and plan the layout, and for all the finer details that brought this together. We have some of these outside and it folds out and you can get like the plan on the other side, so there's a lot of effort put into these. Thank you. Andrew Barry for helping us with this venue. Garrett Hobson from Digital Research Hub and the gang from there for setting up the tech for the exhibition. National Steel, who generously provided fountain pens for our contributors. And of course, Te Kahui Whaihanga, the NZIA, or the New Zealand Institute of Architects, and our generous sponsors for funding and supporting this kaupapa. A bit of housekeeping. Bathrooms are located outside that direction. You know where the exits are, here and here, like an air hostess. So thank you. So before we begin, I wanted to talk about Dr. Sameh Shamout, who is a Palestinian Jordanian lecturer at the Unitec School of Architecture. Sadly, he couldn't be here tonight, but we want to acknowledge his powerful research, Windows of Palestine. This project uses architectural scale models and performance in public places to challenge the biases of traditional media and to give Kiwis a real-time perspective on the atrocities in Gaza. Participants are invited to build an abstract model of Gaza with wooden blocks, representing landmarks like hospitals, churches, and border walls, many of which have been destroyed. As the model takes shape, people are encouraged to share memories, songs, and stories before the performance culminates in its destruction, a visceral act that makes the ongoing violence and loss impossible to ignore. Dr. Shamout's work shows us how architecture can be an act of resistance, a way to represent voices under erasure, and a tool for collective memory and solidarity. We have his poem included in the exhibition out the front, so please take some time to look into his work. All right, so we will start with our speakers. After this, we'll introduce the exhibition outside. So first, we have Dr. Iting Chuang, a Taiwanese academic. Iting holds a Master's of Design from Harvard and is a senior lecturer here and program director of urban design. Her presentation, Walking for Pleasure, is the next frontier in Auckland's mobility, asks an important question. Why do so many Aucklanders still drive, even in walkable areas? Using John Gell's framework, she examines how our environment shapes leisure walking and how hidden perceptual barriers stop people from choosing to walk, even when it's an option. Iting's work bridges data and design, using everything from mobile phone traces to social media to understand how cities really perform. By combining analytics with design thinking, she highlights overlooked public spaces and shows how we can create urban environments that are more inclusive, vibrant, and walkable. Please welcome Dr. Iting Chuang.
Starting already. Yep. Okay. Kia ora, everyone. Hi, I'm Iting Chuang. I'm a senior lecturer. Thank you, Michelle, for the introduction. So I would like to admit something right at the front. I'm not a big worker. I didn't grow up working much because back in Taiwan, scooters and MRT are the rulers, right? So we take MRT much more. But today I would like to share what I've learned in Auckland about working for pleasure. This is going to go automatic?
Oh, it's supposed to.
Okay, so we've all heard that Auckland is a car city. And yes, car dominant, like in the most New Zealand cities. But if you look closer, it's not the entire story. Because on Saturday mornings, you see families heading to the park, and then you see friends scrolling for coffee. And walking is here. It's just sort of nested in the moment. Auckland is not a desert. It's just really patchy. Historically, people here don't walk much for errands or commuting, and the car has always ruled. And now, with the remote walking and online shopping and even Uber Eats, these little have-to walks are disappearing. And if that's functional walking is disappearing, what is the walking style that is remaining for us today? Young Gale give us sort of a way to see this more clearly. He distinguished activities in three ways. It's the things that we have to do and the things that we choose to do, and the social activities that happens in between. But the things that we have to do will happen anyway, but the things that we choose to do will only happen when the place is nice, and the social magic just happens afterwards. Based on this, I think walking in two ways. One is necessary walking and one is discretionary walking. For necessary walking, it's like catching a bus or pick up a kid. Discretionary walking is like, we wandering, meandering through the coastlines and cut shortcuts through the parks. But if the necessary walking is shrinking, then Auckland really should make the discretionary walking the obvious choice, right? Yes, and the structure does play an important role. When street connects, crossings feel more safe, and footpaths are continuous. Walking feels easier, and you'll feel it right away. But structure does not make people walk. Doesn't make people walk. A perfect walkway that leads nowhere is just going to be an empty pavement. So structure sets the stage, but it doesn't guarantee the play. And what pulls us out is the anchors, so the variety of anchors. I live near Eden Village, and I go for coffee on the weekends, but not just coffee. I love to grab a croissant and flowers and maybe a book. It's a variety of these anchors that really make the walking very attractive. Places that has no anchors feels really flat. And then there's the nature, of course. Tamaki Drive, the sea breeze and the horizon changes everything. You don't walk there just to arrive. You walk there to be, right? So nature has the power to transform the simple walking movement into an experience, and the experience is making everything worth a while. And let's move beyond the impressions. We turn into data. 89 million mobile phone points and 300,000 Aucklanders' footsteps. Those are real footsteps. They are not survey guesses. And the picture, more nuanced than the car city label suggested. People are walking. It's just not evenly across the entire city. And here's where it gets really interesting. Some places look on paper very walkable, but the data shows it's not. There's not a lot of activity. For example, like Clean Innes, Henderson, and Permuir, but the data shows very little walking. Meanwhile, Mount Roscoe, Mount Wellington shows high walking, but very limited coverage. So access doesn't mean walk or behavior. When we add equity into it, the story even sharpens. The deprivation index shows places like Mount Roscoe and Manukau are more deprived, so they have lower car ownership. And it's often assumed that walking here is more necessary driven. And in Ponsonby and along Tamaki Drive, by contrast, they are more discretionary. So the key point, the opportunity are not really even. time of the day also make a difference too. During work hours, most of the walks are more necessary driven again. For Mount Roscoe and Manukau, they are quite active. Evenings and weekends shift the picture. So in North Shore and even in Tamaki Drive, they light up with leisure walking. But places like Mount Roscoe stay active all day long. So we know that it sort of shapes not just how, but when. And take Ponsonby as take Ponsonby. Its grid and its connected streets and its destinations all keep walking very strong. Here, walking feels very nature. When I work there, I don't feel like I'm exercising. I feel like I'm part of the street. So the contact has the power of drawing people out. And now compare with Tamaki Drive. The network isn't as dense as Ponsonby, right? It's not really well connected, but the coast is magnetic. People walk there not because they have to, but because they want to. The sea air, the views, the openness, the experience outweighs the connectivity. And across these contexts, a pattern emerges. We know connectivity matters, we know amenity matters, we know nature matters as well. But the weight of each shifts depending on places. In Ponsonby, it's the grid. In Tamaki, it's the nature. And the lesson is, it's never one thing, it's how they work together. And the variety shows why we need to think beyond 15 minutes. My own footsteps doesn't fall within this nice circle. Sometimes I walk further for a better cafe, go to the beach, or just a simply nicer street. It's not about distance, it's about the experience, whether it's worth the walking or not. And this is the gap we see in the data. Some areas look fine on the maps, connected streets, nearby destinations, but yet on the ground they don't feel walkable at all. Heavy traffic, missing crossings, or simply no reasons to go. Access alone does not guarantee steps. What matters is whether the street feels safe, pleasant, and worth the walk. So what can we do? In my opinion, in the underserved areas, I think we should start with the basics. Just make the street safe, connected, and the lightings. And in some sort of, heavy our centers, we can add some shadings, seatings, and traffic calmings. And with the coastal line, we just connect the promenades. The recipe has to match the context. One size fits all is not the answer. We've done a lot of research, but the work is far from complete. We still need a lot of data. But most importantly, I think we need the lived experience. People's stories, surveys, your feelings, because walking is not just a number. It's how the city feels under our feet, step by step. I'll end with me. I'm not a big walker again, I'm admitting it. I didn't grow up with it, and even now I walk less than I would like to. But I've become to believe in it deeply for fairness, for health, and for sustainability. And if walking for pleasure is our next frontier, I would like to be part of it, and I hope you do too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Dr. Yusef Patel, a Kiwi Indian senior lecturer and academic program manager at Unitech. Yusef leads the Social Fabrication Studio project, where architecture students collaborate directly with Auckland communities. These projects aren't just about making things. They explore how fabrication can foster innovative design strategies with real social impact. Through design-build workflows, modular manufacturing, and upcycled prefabrication, students are encouraged to engage with community groups, industry experts, and stakeholders. The result is architectural research rooted in social responsibility, tackling the diverse needs of Tamaki Makaurau while teaching the next generation of architects how to build with care and purpose. Welcome, Dr. Yusef.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me today. It's been a pleasure to talk about my work. I'll be talking to you obviously about my work at Unitech. I've just realised I've been working there for 10 years. And in that time, I spent a lot of time working with students to create a variety of design build projects. And today I'll be talking to you about the design build projects that are very cemented into research. A bit about me. I'm a fourth generation Kiwi Indian from a place called Gujarat in India. And my passion is around making, and it started at the University of Auckland, I guess a lot with Andrew Barry and a lot of other lecturers and professors at University of Auckland and now at Unitec. A lot of my work is in the digital space. It's around designing in computer, printing it on a CNC machine, and printing it for assembly. And now I encourage my students to do the same. One important fact to remember is I spend a lot of time prototyping and testing of ideas. Now, to create community architecture and ensure students are engaged within the process, I really try to get the students to engage with the stakeholders. And in this case, it's Sheikh Rafat from Al Hikmah Trust. And I really ask the students to talk to the talk to the stakeholders, show their models, and have conversations. But I also try to work with industry. So this is people like Abodo, Karaho Harvey, the Fletchers, and so on, and trying to find problems that they need solving. And with my colleague, lecturer Keith Mann, for example, we'll go to Abodo, pick up all their waste material and find ways for them to test new ideas on how to upcycle it, down to making little models and so on. Now, they don't always work. A lot of our projects that we undertake, they might last only a month, but that's okay. There's a lot of learning that we want our students to take from just participating, playing with material, getting their hands dirty. And the more they work and the more they prototype, the better the result. So following that project just on screen from Abodo, we prototyped over 2 years working with a Abodo product. We've showcased at many industry events such as Building Z and some other projects. And in those particular projects, we ask for feedback. We try to make sure the joints are working and so on. And after a huge amount of work, we get a really nice final result. What I try to remind students is it's okay to fail the first time, it's okay to fail the second time, as long as they're learning from it and they're engaging and trying to create a really good outcome. And what's really interesting about this is the students end up coming back for more. Now, COVID-19 created a lot of problems for making. And in my background of file-to-factory architecture, where we design on a computer and then we print it and assemble it, we found that we can really use that to our advantage. And our students spent a lot of time working and testing in the digital space. There was one problem during COVID, however. We could not engage together. And so I had to get the students to test, create diagrams, create assembly drawings and simulations to teach me and my partner, Keith, in this case, to assemble it on their behalf. Now, you know, assembling your own project can be difficult, but assembling someone else's project can be harder. But, you know, technology is great, and we can use that in a really versatile way to create really good outcomes. And in the end, this particular project for Oranga was a success, and it's still standing over 20 years, and there's been no issues. And what I think is really good with these projects is they enable students to really engage in different ways. Now, I've spent a lot of time working with the Islamic community since COVID, March 19, and Unitec has been helping our students engage with the Muslim community. So I've worked with about 5 different Muslim communities across Auckland, all from different backgrounds, whether it's, you know, the Middle East to India. And what's really interesting is they keep on coming back for more and letting our students make product for them. And what's really good with this is they can work in a collaborative way. They can assemble, they can talk to the clients, but they also have to learn a little bit about what is the culture, the people that they're working with. And what they find is every time they work with a new Islamic community, there's a few different, cultural barriers that they have to learn. They're not always the same. Now, I'm working with Iman, who's going to be next, on our next exciting project. Now, this is for a new Islamic centre in Hillsborough. And what's really great about this project is it's huge. We're doing not just the mihrab, but we're doing everything from partition screens to staircases. Now, I've also done work with Auckland Council, Iki Panuku, and a whole bunch of other urban planning committees with Unitec. And we like to design stuff for communities that have leftover space. In this particular case here, my student Miles designed a perfect structure that should not be painted upon for Henderson. Over a lot of conversations, we realised it's going to get graffitied, so why fight it? We're really wanting to embrace the culture of the people, and we've created this graffiti pavilion. Now, this pavilion was to last about 6 months, and what's really good is we're on its 4th year, and the community keeps engaging with it. They keep on painting it and keep on making it still alive. It's moved now to the Force car park if you want to visit it. Please sit on it. For some reason, no one wants to sit on it. They think it's artwork, but it's actually designed to sit on. So something that we learned from this project is sometimes if you make an object to see, sometimes you have to think, oh, maybe I need to design it for seating. The next project is I've worked a lot with my colleague Sameh Poroweni, and we've tried to create pop-up sculptures for different festivals with students. In this case, this is for the Arts Festival a couple of years ago. And what we found with this particular project is we get to engage with a lot of other communities that relate to that one community. And it has led to other cool projects. So in this particular case, I've worked with Isha Patel, one of my another Gujarati Indian student, to create a gateway for Avondale. And what's really quite exciting for this is the students get to really talk again to people that they didn't realise that were in their own community. And it also has led to bigger events that I've worked with Keith on and a few others at Unitec, which is the Matariki event. And that has led to 3 years of creating sculptures for Matariki in Takapuna. And that just showcases that, you know, students can do some really interesting work as long as we give them the tools and the reasons to go there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yusef. All right, next up, we have Iman Khan, a Filipino-Pakistani architectural graduate from the University of Auckland, co-founder of Sidewalk and lecturer at Unitec School of Architecture. Her practice weaves together cultural heritage, climate responsibility, and community-driven design. Her talk on collective sense-making through other architecture challenges us to think about architecture not just as buildings or forms, but as the social relations and processes it enables. In times of crises and disruption, Iman explores how collective sense-making can itself become a form of architectural practice, one that responds to our issues with care and collaboration. So welcome, Iman.
Kia ora everyone, and assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. It is also terrifying. But I just wanted to, I guess, start off with maybe explaining what this means on the screen. Collective sense-making through other architecture. So just a few definitions I thought I'd put up on the screen. Sense-making, instead of looking at the idea of problem-solving, it's a softer approach to how we deal with issues, whether it's in the built environment, whether these are global issues, personal issues. It's a matter of altering, respecting, and acknowledging, or really being a bit closer to the issue at hand. What I will be showing are various ways that I've worked with a whole bunch of people on what I like to call other forms of practicing architecture, ones that are not bound by the physical realm. That includes work done with the community on preservation and the rest. So I thought I'd start off with this idea of a crisis as a way of both setting myself in the right mind frame, or, headspace, as a way of just saying that we are surrounded by a world of issues, whether these are global, in the global scale, climatic, education issues, economic, social, moral. There are a whole bunch that we could talk about. What I will do, though, today is I've sort of just placed myself, or the work that we've done, within broader criteria of research. So I'll be showing 3 main projects that have a look at collective preservation, a collective practice, and collective placemaking. So to start off, I will be showing work that we did with the Digital Heritage Research Center. It's my colleague, my founder, Renata, is just sitting there. But I also wanted to really highlight the rest of the names that are up on the top of the screen. These guys are the ones who have made every little thing that we've done together. These guys are the ones who have made it possible. So I guess I'll just be explaining a bit about what we have done. We go around Auckland looking at various sites or historic sites. These ones are all Category 1 buildings just in Auckland. You can see the, Highwick, Newmarket, Colonial Ammunition Shot Tower. So at certain points, the community either reached out to us to ask us to help preserve these buildings that were then set to be demolished soon after, as a way of both respecting the past and just acknowledging that we, through conversation, through dialogue, through digital preservation, that we are able to retain a certain historical context of, Auckland. This is something that's it's ongoing, and, we try to have fun with the work that we do. The next one is the Lotte Tree Trust. So this is work that Yusef just briefly brought up. I thought this example it's of placemaking, but really, really highlights the community. Over here, these guys are the ones who bought a certain property, which has 3 commercial sites. They've leased it out and are demolishing parts of it to create a space for themselves, a space to gather, to have their festivals, the events, and to worship. At the moment, we are just looking at how to design that with a whole bunch of other people, and this is the community really doing the work. They go there on the weekends, do plastering, whatever work that has to be done. It's really, really, they're the architects, they're the designers, the placemakers, essentially. And then a bunch of students as well at Unitec who are helping with that to happen. So the mihrab that Yusef just showed was the sketch over here. That's now just one part of the greater placemaking that is happening on site. The last project, so this is super quick, but this is Sidewalk, a practice founded by the 3 of us, Jack, Ollie, and myself. And we like to say we dream about architecture, and how there are various other ways of practicing it. So we really like to sort of be a bit more critical about the way that we practice architecture in our discipline. We have a look at, in fact, we start off with lots of walks, lots of talks, over coffee, and you might have noticed that we have an Instagram page where we invite people to come and walk with us as a way of really carefully observing site, observing place. And during that process or during that walk, that is facilitated not by us, but by this idea of a collective, by anyone who comes to join us on the walks. We use photography as a tool to document, looking at areas of interest that are interesting to whoever was taking that photograph. So we document that. We look at, extracting the little cat as well. We look at extracting whatever the people who were there found interesting to themselves. This last slide is just everyone who's been involved, and just to put myself in a very small dot within a much wider context or network of people. And I think the last slide ends with a sketch that I did with my niece. My 3-year-old niece is just sitting there at the back. This is us just working through, or storytelling, coming up with ideas, and just looking, or I guess I put this in here to emphasize and to celebrate the other ways of practicing architecture that might not inherently seem very architectural. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you so much, Iman. All right. Next up, we have the wonderful Bhaveeka Madagammana, who is a Sri Lankan educator and PhD candidate here at Auckland Uni, and is a part of the Māpihi Māori and Pacific Housing Research Centre. In his talk, Hope in Space, Wandering Through Sri Lanka, reflects on the complexity of Sri Lanka's diaspora. Bhaveeka explores how the many journeys of Sri Lankans have intersect, and how hope itself becomes an emotive spatial quality that permeates diasporic places and gatherings. So, welcome, Bhaveeka.
Kia ora, evening. Thank you, Michelle, for this the chance to talk. This talk is more of a kind of rumination than anything, so just excuse me if it's a bit loose, but I'll get on with it. I find Sri Lanka impossible to describe. In polite conversation, I normally emphasize its thousands of years of rich architectural history, paradisic beaches, oceanside pools, and its endless warm hospitality. However, what I normally think about is my decades-long despair for it. Generations of people who have suffered horrific violence and displacement, intractable corruption, and a crippling monetary situation, which has left ordinary people to bear the brunt of the mistakes of the wealthy few. I say this not to discolor Sri Lanka, but to ensure that discussions around the nature and character of its diasporic specialities foreground the complex and contradictory nature of the country itself. And I want to spend this talk outlining the shape and some of the qualities that permeate Sri Lankan architecture in Aotearoa, at least what I find. Many of my earliest memories spent here in Aotearoa were spent on the floors of aunties' houses during dinner parties. Typically, the layout of the dinner went like this. The kids were shoved in the nearest spare room where I would devour Sky TV programs and we'd play worn-out board games. The aunties would take the main living room close to the dining room or the kitchen, where they would gossip and chatter about the latest family updates from Sri Lanka. A group of Sri Lankan aunties are a formidable force and a key support network. They acted as connectors within the country, articulating and formulating new relationships between the kind of new immigrants that would arrive here and those who had already been here for decades. Meanwhile, the men would gather in the TV room, beer or whiskey in hand, watching the Super Rugby, cricket, or most importantly, today, the All Blacks. They typically passionately argued about the country's latest stream of political news that would kind of come out of the country. These distinct groups would converge at dinner time, going up in turn to the dining table where typically a huge array of, and in my case, singular food, was laid out, each person queuing buffet style and filling up on things like chicken curry, pol simbol, malung, paripu, and aloo curry. The plates would be colourful arrays of brown, yellows, reds, and greens around, very importantly, a centre of white rice. Dessert would come soon afterwards and was eagerly anticipated by everybody. And the final course was a gentle tea that would signal the end of the dinner. And so around 1 a.m., when the tea was finally served, all the children by this point are fast asleep and people are filing out of the house, taking their time to say the kind of long goodbyes and ready to meet the following week where someone else would host the dinner party. This is all to say, and what I would like to propose in this very small Pecha Kucha talk is that Sri Lankan dinner parties in Aotearoa are not only critical spaces where kind of Sri Lankan cuisine and relationships can be celebrated, but also where hope can be constructed. Despite the hardships and cultural shock experienced by many Sri Lankans, dinners and gatherings by diaspora community members build social bonds and build rich architectural spaces that are fundamentally focused on hope and betterment. Both kind of deeply passionate negative and positive emotions are tied to dinner parties. Like many other children in Sri Lankan households, I was raised with the idea that education was a primary method for achieving wealth, security, and prosperity. Invariably, becoming a doctor was constantly pushed on us, something that I actually rebelled against, but I've somehow fallen for. In this short talk, I want to articulate how the simple act of gathering around a dinner table can start discussion about how hope and emotive weight can be carried through spaces. This hope is sometimes cruel and harsh, but more often than not, it's caring and loving, and was imparted to us not only as children, but conceived within that kind of dinner party space. Of course, the dinner party I'm talking about is one that I kind of attended in the late 2000s. But there exists a kind of rich tapestry of other dinner parties hosted by many other ethnicities for many other reasons that stretch from the religious to the sacred to the mundane. I'm excited and curious about how Sri Lankan dinner parties in Aotearoa will change in the future, as newer generations of people of mixed heritage who perhaps will never visit or even want to visit Sri Lanka unknowingly carry on and construct their own spaces. Words like diaspora might lose their weight as Sri Lankan ethnicities seek to platform their rootedness here and in international places, crafting cross-border kind of identities. Like in many aspects of life, architecture and the associated texts with its kind of canon, and even the kind of cultural literature that I at least come across, are far behind the theory and practices of Sri Lankans today and their international journeys. Romantically, in my view, even those future descendants who look on Sri Lanka with a mixture of fear and angst should know that they carry unique spatialities that can unfurl the world around them. Yeah, sorry, ended pretty early. But I think maybe I'll just finish on the kind of slides that have been coming through, which are all images that I've either created or have been taken a part of. Really want to emphasize that that emotions, that things that we feel, the kind of things that we feel that are constructed through social relationships are really colourful and imaginative and spectacular things that come alive in dinner parties, and something that even I think about when I host my own dinner parties. I try to think about, even if other people don't necessarily reflect on it, but it's something that I think is very unique to Sri Lankans because of all the kind of the civil war and the kind of the even you can look at Nepal right now with its parliamentary kind of revolutions that are happening, which has happened in Sri Lanka. The dinner party is an essential space to talk those things out, and an essential space for figuring out who you are, even when you sit within your kind of family and kind of friend relationships. Thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Bhaveeka. Beautiful drawings. Next up, we have our final speaker, who is Benjamin Everitt, a Japanese Pākehā architectural designer at Mello architects, is also doing some teaching and lecturing at AUT, School of Future Environments. His work focuses on sustainability from circular economy to transit-oriented design and regenerative systems, and he draws inspiration from working between Japan and New Zealand. His presentation, Rebuilding a Region Post-Earthquake, a cross-cultural view of public buildings in Tohoku, Japan, and Canterbury, New Zealand, explores how two Pacific Rim nations, both vulnerable to natural disasters, approach recovery and resilience. Ben looks at themes of displacement, migration, and belonging alongside the climate crisis to show how architecture can respond with speculation and bold reimagining. So, welcome, Ben.
Sure, thank you very much. To start off with identity, so my family repatriated to Wellington in 1995, and my first exposure to New Zealand architecture was probably Te Papa Tongarewa. I was very much fascinated by the native birds and giant squids. However, my Japanese mother thought that it was a fantastic free daycare. I revisited this building in my first year of architecture school, where we discovered that the entire exhibit was raised above the ground to protect the artifacts in the event of a tsunami. A common theme within Victoria was to explore buildings performing in extreme conditions, and the Canterbury earthquakes became a major precedent. Most apparent was Robin Skinner's research about how the original plans of the cathedral were designed with timber only to be rejected by the bishop to opt for a masonry structure. However, the attempt to reinstate a rigid masonry structure in a seismically active region feels like forcing a square peg in a round hole. While the remainder of the cathedral square is finished and thriving, the restoration of the cathedral remains uncertain. In contrast, the quick response carried out by Shigeru Ban of the transitional cathedral provided a place of worship and gathering, demonstrating the city's ability to adapt and find hope in the event of disaster. Although this is the poster child of urban resilience, little did I realize that the most publicized New Zealand building in Japan was the CTV building, that collapsed from a negligent structural engineer. Improper seismic design led to the death of 150 people, including 27 Japanese students on exchange. The intersection of how structures adapting to its natural environment and fostering the characteristics of local places and cultures became the main influence of my thesis research. In the modern context, the spaces that foster these cultural practices are being challenged by globalization. And there is every opportunity to explore how to negotiate this fine line between the traditional and the modern. While my studies was a time to explore the intersection of cultural values and built environment, it was also a time to read about Japan facts, most notably the post-war influence of atomic and firebombing of cities, and nuclear testing of the Pacific became the main influence of a new genre called kaiju in the Japanese film world, giving birth to the iconic Godzilla through special effects. And never in my life would I have thought that this would have an immediate practical influence on one of my first design projects. So I dropped my thesis off at the library, didn't really care about my grade, and hopped on a plane and worked at my first job at Koken Architects in Tokyo, Japan. I worked on design and construction management of train stations, but I only discovered how vulnerable the islands are to natural disasters, which became apparent in our build site affected by flooding from Typhoon 19. We left the office early on Friday to brace for the typhoon, watched the city flood over Saturday and Sunday, and on Monday, we were expected to return to the office once again. The groundwater seeped up to where the foundations were supposed to be poured, so we had to insert pumps to maintain a water level that doesn't affect the concrete pour. This 5-foot woman next to me was the construction manager of the site and a representative of the train company, essentially our client, as well as the 4 women who conducted the entire build with an extremely calm temperament. Suffice to say, not a single man ever questioned her authority. Despite the environmental circumstances, we were able to successfully achieve the concrete pour. Similar to New Zealand, I attended CPT sessions of new standards and practice, and what stood out was this, on the right, a suspended fall prevention ceiling tile suspended from a suspended ceiling. These legislative changes was very much in reaction to the March 11 earthquake known as 3/11 in Japan. And to prevent the failing of, and many of our projects were centered around rebuilding the region of Tohoku that was affected by the perfect storm of earthquakes, tsunamis, and nuclear fallout. The national strategy for recovery was to connect the most remote northern regions of Japan to main cities by interconnected railways and transit-oriented development. And just to explain what this strategy is in 20 seconds. So the green train goes to a place called Sendai, which is famous for growing edamame beans. The red train travels to a place called Akita, which is famous for growing apples. And the purple train travels to a place called Yamagata, which is famous for growing grapes. And every now and then, when you pay enough attention, you can see the trains kiss. Hopefully that has enticed you to want to visit this very remote region of Japan. Unfortunately, in terms of tourism, only 2% of foreign tourists ever actually visit this part of Japan. The two projects that I'd like to introduce, however, are on a much smaller scale. In the towns of Onagawa, which is along the east coast of Miyagi, and Sukagawa, which runs through the valleys of Fukushima. Again, take a notice of the green train and the red train. The fishing town of Onagawa was the first to be impacted by a 13-meter high tsunami wave that went over a 12-meter high seawall. This was enough to wipe out the entire town. Was based in sea level. The town was therefore replanned for all the residential dwellings to be placed at a higher elevation, given that this severely limits the population growth and housing that can be built within the constraints of the landscape. All commercial buildings were designed to be built within the town centre. Contrary to typical mixed-use zone planning, this is to incentivize as much public activity within the small town as possible. The best figure ground that I was able to find was a map that was published by a fishing shop, and it illustrates where you can find the best tackle in town, incentivizing everyone to come to the small town centre to do their shopping. In the centre of the town is a terminus of the train station designed by Shigeru Ban once again. His timber grid shell roof encapsulates the train station facilities as well as a public bath that acts as a communal centre point of the town. As people walk out, they are very much in line with the axis of the main harbour. It very much solidifies the identity of the town. And the other project that I was involved in was very much a similar scope of works that was based within the town of Sukagawa. Again, the red train goes to the northern part of Japan. This small town of Sukagawa unfortunately experienced a severe liquefaction from a collapsing dam. And this was known as what was known as the second tsunami, unfortunately. And as part of the revitalization, as a precedence, we made a site visit and discovered a communal facility called Sukagawa Tette. It was a new facility that provided a new identity where one community... So this main community center was planned along the thoroughfare where school kids walk to on their way to school. And the interesting thing was that the ground floor was not level, it was just a concrete that was poured. So the entire ground floor was sloped, so you can actually roll a ball down and it would end up onto the other side. And this community centre was planned through a participatory design process and based on residents' feedback provided a spacious, multi-connected interior that shelters residents during the cold winter. It provided spaces for students to find nooks and crannies to do their homework, and toddlers can play within the double-height playground with wire netting within the ceiling. Furthermore, on the top floor was a museum dedicated to the visual effects filmmaker Tsubaraya Eiji, who was born in the small town, and directed the first Godzilla movie. His film career revolved around the kids' TV series Ultraman, to which the entire urban planning of this small town was dedicated to this filmmaker. where people are able to interact with the various kaiju monsters through benches and statues. This became the main influence for our design process. With the overall concept of the train station, we designed a viewing platform that looks out towards the ever-changing township. And this viewing platform was shaped to mimic the shape of a viewfinder of a film camera, to be aligned with the identity of the small town that honored their local hero. And unfortunately, as a grad, I was only able to do small, isolated tasks across practice, but hopefully through stories about identity, climate, and crisis between Asia and Aotearoa, I was able to convey the parts that make up the whole infrastructure network that revitalizes the places that have been inundated by the forces of nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben. Wow. Okay, so now we're going to quickly, we'll get 2 minutes. I'll go through all the projects that are on display. So thank you so much to our speakers for the wonderful presentation. Okay. All right, so first up, we have Sahil Tiku, a Delhi-born Papakura-raised architecture graduate, writer and teacher who's passionate about the connections between people and place. His installation, Tapestries of Tamaki, borrows weaving and modelling as forms of mapping, inviting us to record and reflect on our own experiences of the isthmus. Inspired by Reddy Thompson's idea that architecture mediates between people and land, this work asks us to see our city as a tapestry of relationships between place, memory and each other. Norman Wei, a practicing architect of Zhuang Chinese heritage with a focus on the experimental and tectonic side of design. Together with Ikita Rakolia and Udit Goyal and Franklin Gasper, he presents Al Siaba, a fictional competition entry imagining Shah Jahan's unfinished work across the Taj Mahal in Agra. Shown here in Aotearoa for the very first time, the project reopens a dialogue with one of history's most iconic architectural sites. Next up, Vinayak Garg, a New Zealand-born Punjabi designer based in Auckland whose work explores the journeys of found objects and their stories. His retrospective exhibition, The Page of Wands, 2024, combines collage, ready-made objects, and experimental fabrication to question binaries and explore pluralism, diaspora, and narrative in space. Drawing inspiration from trickster archetypes like Krishna and Prometheus, Vinayak transforms everyday materials into works that reflect memory, ritual, and the transformative power of fire, not as destruction, but as ceremonial beginning. Niall Macaranas, a Filipino architectural graduate from University of Auckland, his project Between Life and Death explores the Manila North Cemetery, where tens of thousands of impoverished families live informally among the dead, turning burial grounds into homes, markets, and everyday spaces. Through the series of thoughtful interventions, Niall exposes the deep social inequalities that make both the living and dead invisible within the urban fabric. His work amplifies marginalized voices and reimagines these spaces with dignity, revealing how architecture can engage with social, political, and cultural realities. This project was also a finalist for the 2024 Student Design Awards. Alyssa Aisha, an Indonesian architectural designer based in Auckland with experience at Herbs Architects and Everitt Adams Interiors. Her project, The Sacred and Profane, Restoring Cultural Resilience in Bali, investigates how modern tourism has transformed Balinese identity, traditions, and livelihoods. Centered on the Subak Water Temple network, Alyssa integrates traditional frameworks, Tri Anga, defining sacred to profane spatial hierarchies, and Tri Hita Karangna, supporting social and ritual harmony into a design proposal that fosters community stewardship and cultural continuity, and also regenerative tourism. Her work won joint first place in the 2022 Indie Awards, the graduate category, highlighting the importance of architecture in preserving cultural resilience. Terry Cheng, an Auckland-born Chinese architectural graduate who has worked with Fair and Hay Architects and Monk Mackenzie. His project, Hearts and Mind, uses water as a metaphor to explore the climate crisis. Set in the Waitakere Ranges, Terry reimagines aqueducts, water towers, and housing 500 years into the future, creating a provocative architectural proposal that blurs the lines between scientific and architectural knowledge. His work fosters what he calls an critical environmentalism, using architecture as a tool to challenge and imagine new possibilities. The project was also a finalist for 2024 Student Design Awards. Eugene Kemaish, a Korean-Turkish graduate who spent 16 years in Turkey and strives to be involved in disaster relief architecture. Her project, The Blood on Our Moon, a celebration of vessels, explores home, belonging, and foreignness for diasporic communities in New Zealand. Eugene frames vessels as architectural objects that carry identity, translating multiple cultures into a sense of belonging. By collaging these vessels, her work transforms spaces, turning foreign houses into homes that resonate with diasporic experiences. Simon Joe, a third-year architecture student at Auckland and founder of student-led publication Behind the Skin. Passionate about community, storytelling, and exploring architecture as a vessel of cultural expression, Simon brings a thoughtful perspective to design. His approach, life happens one room at a time, reimagines what it means to inhabit a home. Instead of a single room, Simon designed 7 interconnected rooms, each responding dynamically to changing weather and South Island landscape. The project emphasizes the intimate relationship between the inhabitant, the space, and nature, showing how life, identity, and environment can unfold one room at a time. Elim Hu, a 5th-year Master of Architecture student of Taiwanese descent. Simon's Korean, sorry, I didn't put that in. Elim, Taiwanese descent, born and raised here. Elim works at Bureau and teaches media and design courses here at Auckland. Her thesis focuses on designing a school for special needs children, reflecting her commitment to architecture that cares for and uplifts communities while responding to climate challenges. Her project, Dwelling in Wrath of Nature, a tale of building resilience in the face of climatic adversity, blends storytelling and architecture to explore resilience in a changing climate. Through stilt house typologies, handcrafted models, and watercolor storyboards, and cinematic drawings, Elim imagines homes as vessels navigating apocalyptic landscapes, turning narrative and climate response into a poetic architectural experience. This project won gold at the Best Awards for Student and Spatial in 2023. Myeon San Ong, a Burmese architecture graduate who spent the first 12 years of his life in a Thai-Myanmar refugee camp before resettling in Aotearoa. His lived experience fuels his belief in architecture's transformative potential, approached with empathy and resilience. His master's thesis, Piet Tang Tung, takes its name from a traditional Myanmar children's toy that always stands upright, symbolism of perseverance and hope. The project explores how community-based refugee camp architecture can foster belonging, resilience, and agency, using sustainable materials like bamboo and engaging refugees in the building process. Myeon Sang-eun's work demonstrates how architecture can create safe, empowering spaces that honour lived experience and promote social connection. This project was the winner for the Student Design Awards in 2021. Next, we have a collaborative team of Carl Mendes, Joel Tolentino, both Filipino, and Don Pengpala, Thai Kiwi, architectural designers based in Auckland. Their project, Western Samar Coastal Agriculture Project, or WSCAP, brings an Aotearoa Filipino perspective to architectural design, providing consultancy, site development, and localized design language that celebrates cultural heritage. This project empowers vulnerable Filipino communities by transforming agriculture into a resilient source of stability, with training hubs, irrigation, and post-harvest facilities. Rooted in the spirit of Bayanihan and enriched by Aotearoa Filipino design values, the project shows how architecture can preserve identity and foster innovation and support communities to build with pride. It was a highly commended award for 2023 Auckland Architectural Association in the degrowth category. We also have Carl Mendes doing his project Malaya, a cultural shift of Filipino diaspora, and it's set in the port of Cebu and reimagines an architectural port as an empowering agency for overseas Filipino workers. By equipping diasporic communities with skills and knowledge while honouring cultural heritage, the building becomes a beacon of hope, acknowledging the past while boldly looking towards the future. Next up is mine. So I am the organiser of Asia Kiwi Architects. I'm a professional teaching fellow at Auckland, and I am also an architectural designer and technician in residential project management. My project, Metabolism Rebirth, recontextualized metabolist housing in Wynyard Quarter, reimagines Japanese metabolist architecture for urban Auckland. By proposing 4 metabolist-inspired buildings types across Wynyard Quarter, I explored how architecture can respond to socio-economic upheavals, housing crises, and climate challenges. Drawing from the post-war metabolist movement in Tokyo, the project demonstrates how speculative adaptive design can anticipate and address the urban challenges of the 21st century. Rosemary Lee, a Chinese architectural designer with broad experience across practice, committed to designing and uplifting communities. Her thesis, Dogong Revival, revives the traditional Chinese bracket system using modern fabrication techniques. Through research-driven design and construction, Rosemary explores how ancient craftsmanship can be reinterpreted today, creating monumental installations that commemorate the COVID-19 pandemic. Her work includes the #WishTree for Auckland Art Week and Kaipara Coast Sculpture Gardens, and the Sentimental Piece, a top finalist in the 2020 Brick Bay competition. Almost there. Dian Fei Wang, Fujianese Chinese architecture graduate, currently based in Nam, Melbourne, whose early experiences on construction shaped his path in architecture. His project, Ye Na Chinatown, explores how architecture can create safe spaces in diasporic communities. Using Chinese Kiwi community as a case study, he investigates nomadic, adaptable market structures that celebrate cultural heritage while responding to historical and contemporary challenges, including racism and social exclusion. The project reimagines Chinatown as a flexible, inclusive, and resilient architectural strategy that fosters belonging and dialogue. Rafael Angelo Ganaban, a Filipino architectural graduate from Auckland, born in the Philippines and raised here. His project, Lilim in Payaman, Cultivating Filipino Culture and Humanitarianism Through Architecture, investigates Filipino identity through architecture. Reflecting on cultural heritage, migration, and socio-economic challenges, Rafael explores how architecture can celebrate Filipino culture, foster community, and provide spaces that respond to both identity and humanitarian needs. Next up, we've got Hayley Yeon Kwak, a Korean architectural designer who moved to New Zealand in 2018. Struggling with language barriers, Hayley found visual expression through architecture as a way to communicate across cultures, bridging differences and fostering environments that celebrate individual experiences. Her project, Mon Hyung-gak, imagines a home on a small island adrift in a sea of uncertainty where wooden pillars rise from rocky foundations and pahudakawa trees, which embrace the architecture. By blending traditional Korean architectural principles with Māori design conventions, Hayley's design creates a space where dwelling, culture, and land are inseparable. A home that reflects both her personal journey and visualizes an harmonious and cross-cultural dialogue. Next up, Janae Van Panahon, a Filipino-New Zealander and Master of Architecture from here, whose award-winning work includes Tamaki Makoto Architecture Supreme Award, second prize in the World Stage Design Theatre Architecture Competition. She is currently a graduate here a graduate teaching assistant here and works as an interdisciplinary designer. Her project, Diswanyat al-Mazra, explores public assembly, poetry, and performance within theatre architecture. Inspired by Middle Eastern hospitality and local Sharjah context, Janae's design creates a filigree timber kit of parts forming a central hall and surrounding gallery, offering spatial paradigm for performance and gathering. This project also celebrates collaboration with Indigenous artisans, blending local craft with scenography to stage poetics, dialogue, and community. Ji Won Hyo, a 1.5 generation Korean Kiwi graduate who believes in architecture's power to bridge culture and connection. Her project, Fermentation Fusion, explores food sharing and cultural exchange on Auckland's waterfront. Through a public kitchen and dining space, Jiwon envisions an immersive experience where cultures mix like fermentation, transforming, interacting, and celebrating differences. And finally, we have Betty Han, also Master of Architectural professional graduate here, second generation Chinese Kiwi from Waiheke Island. Her work explores identity, belonging, and how diasporic narratives shape architectural expression. Her project, Carving Identity, explores Chinese heritage through wood prints, using wood carving and printmaking to explore the duality of heritage and personal experience. Transforming traditional carving into print becomes a metaphor for evolving identity, creating a space where cultural roots and individual history merge, shaping an authentic sense of home and self. All right, so thank you all again for being here tonight and for supporting this platform, which celebrates these voices and visions of Asian Kiwi architects. I hope you enjoyed the exhibition, you enjoyed the presentations, and the incredible projects on display. There will be some nibbles and drinks outside. Please do not touch the projects. Stay connected with us. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram. We have a beta website. And the pop-up exhibition will go until 3:30 tomorrow. So if you have any friends that were keen to come, please tell them about it. Those aren't ticketed. Thank you everyone for being here tonight.